We're doing okay.
Okay. All right. So we'll call this meeting to order with the Planning Commission. Please call the roll.
Chairman Lyles,
Here.
Vice Chairman Jones, Commissioner Benninger,
Here.
Commissioner McCoy,
Here.
Commissioner Reed.
All right. We're here to discuss regarding an amendment to our locally zoned regulations. I guess we go with staff.
Have to call the.
Oh, we got to call them too.
Right.
Yeah, my bad.
Sorry, I should have mentioned that, Keith. Sorry about that. So I would like to call the meeting to order for the council.
Councilor Lyles,
Here.
Councilor McCarty. Here. Councilor Mullins. Here. Vice Mayor Stovall.
Here.
Mayor Gross.
Yes, here. Now, I guess at this point, would Keith open the discussion, or have you got the details, or staff got a report?
We have staff report. How are you?
I thought maybe Keith was going to give one.
Good evening, Council, Commissioner members. So I'm just going to go through the staff report that was in the attached meeting packet. Overall, the proposed amendments would require medical and dental uses to obtain a special use permit in all of our commercially zoned zoning districts. And it would additionally require hospitals to obtain a special use permit in GB M1 and M2. Just 6 principles concerning special use permits before we go into the justifications for the proposed amendments. Number 1, special use permits are legislative in nature. Secondly, the uses allowed by SUP are considered to have a potentially greater impact than those allowed by matter of right, or permitted by right. Special use permits must be evaluated under reasonable standards based on zoning principles. Impacts from special use permits are addressed through conditions. Conditions must be reasonably related to the impacts addressed, and to the extent the conditions must be roughly proportional to the impacts. There's a 2-test rule. They have to be reasonably related, and they also have to be roughly proportional to the impact being addressed. And then decisions by a governing body, such as the town council, in granting or denying a special use permit are presumed to be correct and reviewed under the fairly debatable standard. So I'm going to go through the justifications. This heavily uses the state code and what the state code principles in applying special use permits and crafting them, and how towns throughout the Commonwealth are supposed to develop their zoning ordinances and implement them. But starting at the high level, the Virginia Code with the Declaration of Legislative Intent, the section there discusses the intent of planning and zoning in general. So this is really high level, to improve the public health, safety, convenience, and welfare of citizens, and to plan for future development. And the rest of the code sections there in the staff report. But the 3 things I'd like to highlight is that in the legislative intent, there's the need to recognize the needs for agriculture, industry, and business and future growth, provide residential areas with healthy surroundings for family life, provide for growth that is consonant with efficient and economic use of public funds. So that's just high level what planning and zoning, the legislative intent behind it. The purpose of zoning ordinances specifically, you can see that code language, but 4 principles I want to highlight there is that zoning ordinances have the purpose of reducing or preventing the congestion in public streets, the facilitation and creation of convenient, attractive, and harmonious societies or communities, facilitating the provision of adequate services, public water, sewer, fire, EMS, encouragement of economic development activities that provide desirable employment and enlarge the tax base. And so those are the 4 principles and the purpose of zoning ordinances. Final state code section is about matters to consider when drawing and applying zoning ordinances and districts in your locality. And just the factors that we want to highlight is when you're looking at a property and whether or not it should require a special use permit, whether it should be rezoned, any form of land use decision, you can look at the property and evaluate it based on its existing use and character, the suitability of property for various uses, trends of growth and change in your community, the current and future requirements of the community as to land for various purposes, the requirements for public services, and the conservation of properties and their values, and the encouragement of the most appropriate uses throughout the town. And then finally, looking at our own town ordinance, zoning ordinance, the one major facet that we apply when we require a special use permit is the consideration of impacts of a proposed use on neighboring properties. So that's within the town code when we're looking at whether to grant or deny a special use permit for a property. So in conclusion, and the reason for these amendments, town staff found that the available property in Vinton, which is only 3.2 square miles, for a medical or dental facility or a hospital could impact the needs of industry and business and future growth, the surroundings of residential areas, the efficient and economical use of public funds, congestion in public streets, the creation of a convenient, attractive, harmonious society, and the other facets we listed in the state code that were highlighted. With these factors considered, we recommend the change in the zoning ordinance to no longer permit medical and dental facilities and hospitals as a matter of right within the town, but instead to require such uses to undergo the special use permit process, which would grant the Planning Commission and Town Council greater scrutiny when reviewing establishments that are wanting to operate in the town of Vinton. So as mentioned, this process would allow the Planning Commission and Town Council to evaluate among factors, all the factors listed in the state code. I won't read them again, to see if that use of that land is the most appropriate use for that establishment. And then also, once again, highlighting the impact on the proposed use on the neighboring properties. In addition to the other factors that the state code allows towns to evaluate zoning and land use principles. So that's the staff report. It's heavily built on the state code. Depending on your questions, I think we can move into a period of comments and questions. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Planning Commission, any questions, comments?
Got a few questions and comments personally from a couple of different cases. I don't know, Nathan, you can maybe speak a little to some of the questions I might have. How many other localities did you take a look at when you reviewed this specific ordinance change?
We, I thought was the main premise that wasn't copied correctly. But we did look at the typical benchmark locality that we evaluate when we're investigating changes in zoning in the town, like Rowan City, Town of Blackford, or Hardin County, Salem, and in our neighboring communities.
And I would just add, it is not uncommon for medical offices and similar facilities to require a conditional use permit or special use permit across. I'm not going to say it's uniform across the state, but it is not uncommon across the state to require it.
I only ask, I did some research and not exhaustive list by any means. Of a few localities that are similar size to Vinton. Looked at Abingdon, Whiffle, Town of Bedford, Pulaski, a few other localities. My concern is for this to require all office use, medical, dental offices to require SUP is like taking a chainsaw to a problem when a scalpel would be a better fit. The localities I looked at, none of them required an SUP in every commercial district for this type of use. So it's a little concerning that you might require somebody that's a dentist or somebody that might be a chiropractor or somebody that's just a family physician to get an SUP, to come before the town council, to come before the planning commission for a use that's not too dissimilar to some uses we have here today and might not have the same impacts that other by right uses might have, say a veterinarian clinic or a pharmacy, something of that nature. So my concern is just doing a carte blanche across the board SUP, when maybe we could take a better look at specific zoning districts and which might be better fit for by right versus SUP uses. I don't have the answer for which ones might be better fit for that. I just don't necessarily think at this moment an SUP across the board is the right path forward.
What else? Please.
If I might, I'm sure, if I might address that, because I had some similar thoughts. I thought, gee whiz, we're going to require everyone, and my concern was that it might even discourage some folks, but where I finally settled on this is that when I consider the availability of facilities that we have, or even the space that we have, I mean, we just don't have that many that are even eligible, to accommodate an office like that. And we are pretty well built out. And I was thinking about, well, when's the last time we even considered one? To be honest with you, I can't even remember. And of course, with my memory, it might have been last week, but I don't. So I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. But the reason I didn't land there is because I just feel like with the amount of facilities we have available, and not like there's been a big influx of any kind of office like that. I just didn't. I kind of gave up on that idea, just to be honest with you.
And part of the
That's just one
process
thought.
is to, control how land is used going forward, control the development of certain parcels of land. And to Mr. McCoy's point, you may decide that there are other by right uses that you want to have more control over when you have such a confined, amount of space and such limited developable land available. There may be other by right uses you want to try to rein in. Something certainly for the Planning Commission to consider going forward. This one, the drawing lines between different types of medical uses seem to me to be more problematic. And so we didn't want to go down the path of trying to pick specific medical uses. As far as the issue about different zoning districts, there could be a discussion about that. That's something for council certainly to consider.
Okay.
Jeremy, if we were to take action later this evening after public hearing, to Jonathan's point, if we wanted to come back and designate specific districts after the fact, we could retract across the board.
It's just another zoning amendment, so you'd have to go through the process again.
It wouldn't necessarily require us not to take action. Like, we could come back,
Sure.
better refine that if we chose to do it after more discussion and more kind of review.
And another path forward would be to table and have the conversations until the next meeting. I'm not necessarily proposing that, but it would be kind of similar to Mr. Peters' suggestion that we could take a little bit more time, see what locations might make more sense, which ones don't, and then make a decision.
Anyone else? Dave, well, Council.
Well, I think I've made my comment. Council, you have any other comments or questions?
But no, I agree with you. And I see exactly where you're coming from. My position is that it just gives us the opportunity going forward to know the unknown. And with filing a special use permit, then we have the opportunity to find out, for example, I was talking to someone the other day about, so we have, as you know, the vet in town, and they're walking their dogs inside the fence and those kind of things. And they were talking about, they'd heard there was going to be another, a dog place coming to the town. They were opposed to that. So, that's how I look at it, is the fact that it gives us the opportunity, to know the unknown. I don't think we can do what you're talking about, wait to the next meeting, compared to what Mr. Peters was talking about, is the fact that we set up districts inside the town to where if you want to do, to me, this kind of facility, this kind of a business in this district, you can do it. If not, if you're outside this district and you want to do it, then you have to get special use. But I think it's going to take a lot of work actually on y'all's part and then on our part. So that's my position at the moment, would be just the fact that we get to know the unknown. Actually this person is saying they're going to do, dog grooming, but actually they're going to do boarding and those kind of things and have dogs around all weekend, those kind of things. That makes sense. Sure. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't think we're eye to eye on it, but it makes sense.
Okay.
And the application specific review would take into account, the reasonableness analysis would take into account what zoning district it's in. So, you may have a more reasonable use in certain zoning districts than other districts, and that may impact the conditions you seek to impose on a proposed use. So I don't know that you would want to just simply remove the special use permit process in particular districts. Just as you're going through the process, it will inform and play a role in your reasonableness analysis and determining what conditions should be imposed on particular use.
For contextual purposes, was there ever any thought about putting supplemental regulations on the use rather than making it a special use permit?
The discussion of supplemental regulations that we had was in the context of the special use permit process. So giving some guidelines of what expectations would be required in addition to going through the special use permit process, not in the.
All right. The mayor, you.
Okay.
And then. Yeah, I like the idea. I mean, I agree by looking at it through the way you are too. But by the way that we're doing this now, we can always come back and discuss further and start somewhere and then continue later rather than tabling it for so we can all get back together again. But you did bring up some good points. So
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, because I guess, taking some kind of action sooner rather than later, just because we've been sort of trying to put one thing going since June. I mean, just to get an idea of what we can do going forward, and it's been a struggle.
I understand scheduling. That is difficult.
Well,
Not only that, it's been a struggle for us. I mean, it's difficult. It's
sure it is.
the whole situation and why we led to this. It's been difficult for all of us, I think. And if we can make some sort of move to start somewhere, and then, if we need to revisit each area.
Well, and I also, and you're right, the June issue, et cetera, we all know what that is. However, we have a lot that naturally we can't expose yet because it's people working behind the scenes, people that want to come into the town of Benton, and people want to do, to me, what we want to do is, and that's build this town for a legacy. And, these people want to come in and do this conglomeration, do this deal. And then right now, somebody can come right beside it, get a permit, and put this business in that may reflect negatively on them. And with this idea we have right at the moment, we at least have the opportunity for them to come to us and say, okay, this is what I want to do. It's not going to negatively affect this. However, this is what I want to do. And we may be able to, we can say then, well, we got you, but can we put you over here and not right here? Does that make sense? So that we kind of know right now what people are doing, because we just have so much going on. And like the mayor said, I've been here 5 years and we've never done a special use. And of course, naturally, he's been here a whole lot longer than all of us, as you can tell. So,
You can
however,
tell, right?
so anyway, thank you.
What's it do? No, I think excuse me, I was just going to say, I think that's a terrific point, Mike, in that we would then have, with the special use permit, the opportunity to measure that impact that clinic might have on an existing or even
Or anything.
a future business.
Right, anything, sure.
And that's why I say, and to Mr. McCoy's point, there could be other uses that through the planning process you want to gain similar control over concerning the development of land in Benton. I know some jurisdictions who require conditional use permits for nearly everything. So, I mean, and I'm not encouraging that, but there is some thought process to go through, what do you want to have some degree of control of.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, Chair, Planning Commission, I just want to suggest that if there are no more questions amongst the commissioners or council, we could take a break and reconvene at 6 p.m. for the public hearing. We'll do a staff report and a public hearing. Obviously, if you've got more questions, you can continue to debate this and discuss. That's what this work session is for. But when you're ready, we don't have to actually adjourn. We can just take a break and come back at 6.
So, Mr. Lyles and the planning commission at 6, he will make this recommendation to the town council.
They'll hear the public hearing,
All right, right, sure.
see the comments, and then
Yeah,
they'll
right.
make their recommendation. And
To the council, then the council will make the, gotcha.
And each board would have to do a first and a second, correct? The planning commission as well as town council to
yeah, I mean, that
individually vote.
presupposes what I mean,
Sure. You know, I was just
before the
asking.
point, there could be a motion to table something as well, so that,
Gotcha.
you know, it could go in.
So, with that scenario, then we would be having a public hearing without a recommendation from the planning commission?
You wouldn't have that until after the public hearing.
You have a joint public hearing, and then the planning commission takes its action, and then depending on the planning commission's action, town council.
This is a work session, it's a
Okay.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just scheduled this work session to have additional opportunity to discuss it because it's the first time we've met as a group.
Yeah.
And during the public session, prior to the public comments, we just want to give you an opportunity to have this exact type of dialogue. This is exactly what this is designed for. While we're all in the same room.
Sounds good. And by the way, I see that on the agenda now, where they would make a recommendation right before. So. Okay, so I guess we can take a break until 6 p.m. then.
And we will repeat the staff report. Once you open the public hearing, we'll repeat the staff report, invite citizen comments,
Right.
close the public hearing.
Yeah.
And consider any action that both planning commission and town council will want to take at that point.
Nathan will probably be able to recite the report by then, right?
We'll give him a test on it.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, folks. See you at 6, right?
Yeah. 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.